not on track.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that goes up on the other side.
That's
So
the one to Craftsbury.
Right. Well, Craftsbury, you make a right and go off it would,
No, they have a.
it goes up to Albany, I believe, right?
Yeah.
We just.
We're now live talking about road.
Because on Tuesday, they have.
It's Senate Transportation Committee. It's March 27th, Wednesday. We're gonna talk about the T-bill, 868, is that what it is? Yes, 868. And there's section 30, which mentions participation from the treasurer and the treasurer's office. And so we asked the treasurer's office to come in, so that is what we have today. So you can put yourself on record and tell us what you think of section 30 of this bill.
Sure, thank you for having me. My name is Ashlyn Doyan. I'm the Director of Policy in the State Treasurer's Office. And as Senator Bushlick alluded to, I'm here to speak to you today about section 30 of H 868. This section authorizes sort of a two-part report of which the treasurer has a role in both parts, but is the primary doer, so to speak, of the second part of the analysis. This sort of stems, and I think that there are probably other folks that can give more background on the history of the transportation and climate initiative programs and attempts to do cap and invest programs in the transportation sector much better than I can. So I would refer you to folks from ANR or VTrans for that context.
And then just so you know, they did come in last week.
Great, perfect. And so I'll sort of speak more to the second part of the report, which asks the Treasurer's Office to review the cost and revenue projections for each scenario that the first analysis puts forward and come back to the legislature with a written recommendation if any of those scenarios are viable approaches for the state to take in the middle of your next legislative session. What I'll say is that this work sort of fits hand in glove with some other work that we are partnering with the Agency of Natural Resources on this year in terms of the climate resilience and implementation strategy that the Treasurer and the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources announced earlier this winter. It also sort of coincides with, it's different, but we are venturing back into the climate space. And so in my mind, we have this sort of parallel project in the climate cost recovery bill with ANR, and then we have this transportation project as well. We are meeting next week with staff from the Climate Action Office and VTrans to talk about the scope of work for the first part of the report to determine sort of what pieces of information from a Treasurer's Office perspective we think that we are going to need specifically in order to be able to effectively review those cost and revenue projections for each scenario. I can't tell you what those pieces of information are yet because we're going to start that work next week. However, I can tell you that by the time this bill passes, we hope to have done a lot of that sort of forward thinking and planning work so that we can get the ball rolling immediately on the analytical components. There is a provision in section 30, I think it's the last provision, that allows the state treasurer to use funds appropriated in state fiscal year 2025 to complete this work. That means
50 minus 14.
yes. That means that we're not requesting an additional appropriation above and beyond what you already give to our office to do this work, but we may need to expend sort of a small dollar amount out of our administrative budget for this purpose. we used similar language when we did the climate infrastructure analysis this fall, and I think we ended up spending less than $5,000, but it was really helpful to have this language in there so that we could hire some outside sort of organizational help and expertise. Are there any specific questions that I can speak
When you
to?
talk about the second part, the first part is basically that treasurer can be consulted.
Mhm.
But then there's the second part of recommendations. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
find that. Where
Where you
is
said-
that?
Page 49 on
Well,
line
page-
15.
Okay, so page 47 is where it says the consult
No, but
consultation with the treasurer.
49, 3 in parentheses, line 14.
In
And the
consultation.
state treasurer's written recommendation to the General Assembly regarding any viable approaches. So it does say state treasurer's written recommendation. So you have in consultation shall file the written analysis required. But the state treasurer has to submit recommendations, that's line 17, regarding any viable approaches.
Under, required under E.
Yeah, 49, page 49,
Right, but it says any written recommendations
Under E.
required under
E in
E.
this section.
and where F.
Oh, well, E is down at the bottom of 48.
Oh, that's the part I was on. This is the written
Shall,
analysis.
right,
I'm looking at the as passed on the website, and I think I'm off by a page, because they did make a change at the last minute.
Yeah, so it's
I don't know.
It's around, so like it's C on our page 48. Section, this is like.
Section 30,
Section
right?
30, yeah. E in section 30, I think is the main thing that the treasurer is gonna have to do. It's written analysis of the section shall be provided to the state treasurer to review the costs, revenue projections for each scenario.
And that's what Ashley was talking about.
Make written recommendations regarding viable approaches.
And it's repeated again down in 3, regarding,
Right, regarding that analysis. So we just wanted to make sure that the treasurer's office was okay with doing this written analysis of these transportation fundings, which isn't something normally that the treasurer's office does, but that's similar to the kind of the climate financing work you did.
Yes, so I think that Treasurer Pichek's perspective is that so many of the challenges that we're facing in the climate space right now relate to Vermont's larger economy and our overall fiscal health, that it's appropriate for our office to sort of lend our expertise to this topic area in the same way that we have worked on affordable housing, clean water, the like in the past. And yes, we are open to doing this work. He is excited about sort of both channels of the work that we're going to be doing. And
use it almost as complementary then.
yes, yeah. And we worked with Legislative Council Chair Coffey, ANR, and VTrans to draft this language as well.
Is there anything that the treasurer's office wants to get involved in?
You certainly have my list.
Okay, Senator Chittenden.
So I think you just answered my questions, and I just want to put a finer point on it. You said that there is complements between, I think, S259, the Make Big Oil Pay, and this one. Do you see any efficiencies by just further directly aligning the two efforts so that there isn't some sort of barrier between the reports or so on?
You know, I don't think so. I think that we've landed in both bills with language that all stakeholders are agreeable to, and I wouldn't want to upset the apple cart there. I think that the efficiency is that we're working with many of the same contacts at the agency and on both projects. And that, you know, hopefully as a result of both projects, we're able to bring some additional funds to help combat climate change to the state in one way or another.
Well, a question was asked last night as we were leaving the chairs meeting about who does the leases for the ski areas. Does the treasurer's office do that?
No,
No,
A&R does it.
A&R does.
Because it's.
I think he's the one that asked me.
What?
I thought he was the one that asked me.
No, actually, that was on the list when we were looking at lease revenues, and A&R does produce,
Okay.
because they have, and those leases are tied into ticket sales and stuff, they're long-term leases.
There is a new provision, where there might be sort of some confusion there. If the state is leasing something for its own use, the treasurer's office now has to approve those, as sort of a capital liability. So for example, the one I remember off the top of my head is the day that Treasurer Pichek came into office, we needed to get his signature right away on some equipment that the Department of Public Safety was leasing. And so that had to sort of come through our office in a pro forma kind of way.
when what the state is a leasing, when we're paying for.
Correct.
I have something for you after as well. I have something for you after as well. We
Good.
went to-
Hope it's good.
It is,
I'm only accepting good news.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for the treasurer's office?
So does the administration support this section? Yes.
Okay, and I think we have, well, other than we wanted to hear from the treasurer's office to make sure
Mhm.
we're kind of considers this closed out section. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, well, until Donna gets here, we have more time.
What time is she coming?
Donna was gonna come at 11, so it's 15
On
minutes.
what line?